Okay, so it's, what time is it? 10 o'clock Pacific time, and I saw something last night about the El Paso shooting, and then just this morning I heard about the Dayton shooting. And of course, those are both terrible things. They're mass shootings, nobody wants that to happen. Doesn't mean, like, the main thing is just that it happened, not really why it happened. Obviously, why it happened is important, but the key thing is it's a terrible thing. Nobody wants it to happen. But the thing that's bothering me is that they're clearly taking this and using it to push an agenda. And I'm watching this video by, what is this? Okay, so this is MSNBC. So I just watched something by ABC talking about the Dayton shooting because I hadn't heard about that. And that video was put up like about an hour ago, or maybe a couple hours ago, where they were talking about how they were just explaining what had happened, that it happened early this morning in Dayton, Ohio, and that they do not know the motive of the shooter yet. And in both of these cases, they haven't shown an image of the shooter, which in previous years, they were very quick to show a picture of the shooter, especially if they knew that they could somehow use it to their advantage. You know, if it was like, oh, we want to make an argument about how this is racist. Well, they very quickly show that it's a picture of a white guy. I find it interesting they haven't shown a picture of the shooter yet. That may not have been released yet, but then it's kind of funny that they're going this white nationalist route. And they're including the Dayton shooting in this argument about, they said, what was it, Gilroy? I did not hear about that, so I'll have to look that up. Gilroy, and then El Paso and Dayton. The funny thing is like, I just watched a video by ABC saying they don't yet know the motive of the shooter in Dayton, but this is MSNBC basically saying that they do know the motive of the shooter in Dayton, that it's all white nationalism, it's all connected somehow. And honestly, like, at first I was thinking, okay, go ahead, I guess. There's, this guy, whatever, Clint Watts, or no, it wasn't Clint, it was the guy, this guy right here. Forget who he is. Saying, like, this is the greatest, like, one of, or if not the greatest threats that we face right now. And I'm thinking, really? Really? This is it? I seriously disagree. I really don't think that this is like a huge threat that we face right now. Is it a problem? Yes, assuming that all three of those events are connected, which, like I said, I just watched ABC, which it's not like ABC and MSNBC have different biases. They're both kind of biased toward the left. But ABC just said they do not yet know the motive of the Dayton shooter, so I don't know how you know that these are connected when so little information has just come out about something that happened today and just yesterday. But the problem that I have is then they start talking about cyber terrorism units. And for me, if you said, well, we're going to go and we're going to look for white nationalists, we're going to, try to stop them from committing these acts. And it's like, okay, regardless of whether or not it's a real, I don't really think that it's as significant as they claim, especially since, one of the major, I guess I don't know how big that group is, but it was a huge story when we found out that there was a black guy running a neo-Nazi group and he has every intention of destroying it. So how powerful are these groups exactly? How imposing are they if it's that easy for them to be completely undermined? Just saying. I mean, and what are their numbers exactly? How huge of a problem is this? I suppose you could make a similar argument about Islamic terrorism, at least in the United States, in terms of numbers. But it's like, yeah, but there's not a massive focus, there's not like a massive concentration of white nationalists somewhere else in the world that white nationalists in this country are taking pointers from. So that's the huge difference there between white nationalism and Islamic terrorism, because neo-Nazis, white nationalists, all over the world are in like the tens of thousands. Like I think the highest concentration that I'm aware of is in the United States, and it's still only in like the millions. And it's not like it's a very tiny percentage of the entire U.S. population. Supposedly, that's based on numbers of people who supposedly support like white supremacists, neo-Nazis. Not even an exact number of people who believe in those ideas, and then it would be an even smaller number of people who are actually committing any kind of terrorist acts or have any intention of committing terrorist acts. So, but the idea that this is some, serious problem, it's like, oh, of course, when you have the exact same thing with higher death tolls occurring, the guy was comparing it to like ISIS attacks in Europe just a couple years ago, and it's like, didn't those number at least in the hundreds, and you're comparing this to tens of deaths? Like, I don't want to play a numbers game because it's terrible no matter how many people die. It is terrible. But at the same time, you have to be objective. You have to point out that there's a difference in the threat of a group that is producing hundreds, thousands of deaths and a group that is producing tens of deaths if these events are all connected, which we do not yet know, and they're not actually explaining how they know this. But the problem that I have, like I said, is, okay, white nationalists, if you say we want to go after white nationalists, okay, well, I don't have a problem with you doing that. As long as you're actually going after white nationalists and trying to stop them from, committing terrorist acts or what, it's kind of like, I don't care how guilty they are, because I just don't care about white nationalists. They're still people, but you know what? It's like, if you want to stalk them and make sure they're not doing anything terrible, I don't really have a problem with that, because they're wrong. As long as you don't take away their rights as citizens for nothing, like if they're sitting there and they're just being bigoted but they're not doing anything wrong, and you treat them like less than human, then yeah, I have a problem with that, despite the fact that I disagree with them. But the problem that I have is when they started talking about cyber terrorism units, and I'm like, oh great, this certainly can't go a terrible direction, can it? Because all I'm thinking is, okay, so what they're going to start doing is they're going to start censoring people who are on the right, people who are constantly accused of being, people who are called Nazis and white supremacists, white nationalists, blah, 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 who are not. Some people who are even like center left, who are accused of being Nazis and white nationalists, white supremacists, whatever. And I'm just thinking, okay, well, if they try to go after people they disagree with, and I don't trust these people. I honestly just don't trust people who are appearing on like CNN or MSNBC to appropriately judge what, white nationalists, who white nationalists, white supremacists actually are. The same way I don't fully trust Fox News to judge who like the far left really are. It's not that they are completely wrong, it's just I don't trust them. I don't trust anybody in news anymore. But the problem that I have is, okay, so they start going online and they start going after, the Daily Stormer. Who cares? But then once they're gone, they start going after conservatives. They start going after conservative YouTubers, alternative media. They start taking them down. And you think, well, I'm center left. I'm fine. But once they're gone, who's left? Once they're gone, who's on the far right now? Who is represented as the far right once you have digitally ostracized the far right? It just gets more and more left. And if you keep going, that's the problem. If they keep going with this, and they're building up a case to keep going. They're arguing that this is a serious problem. And it's not that it's not a problem, but they're making it sound like this is like the most serious terrorist threat that we've faced in a long time. Just watch this freaking video by MSNBC. We have freaking notifications are in the way. We have a white nationalist terrorist problem in this country. MSNBC. Just watch this video. That's the way they're making it sound. Like, this is like a serious threat. We really have to do something about this. And I'm not saying that we don't have to do something about this, but the problem is, like I said, once you start talking about cyber terrorism, if you really want to go after legitimate white nationalists, neo-Nazis, and it shouldn't just be them, that's the key thing. Like, shouldn't you also be going after Islamic terrorists online? Like, can we just decree that we should be going after any kind of supposed terrorist groups online and in real life? Can we just do that regardless of what they look like, who they are, what they want to do? Can we just go after all of them? Not one particular group? Not one group harder than another? Can we just go after all of them? I mean, yeah, if one is much more dangerous than another, we should go after that one over the other. If there's like a terrorist group and they've killed 5 people, then obviously that's of lesser concern. It's still concerning, but it's of lesser concern. But like I said, my problem is that when they start talking about cyber terrorism units, I just think of the Overton window. I just think, okay, how far are they going to go with this? Are they really going to stop at actual terrorists, or are they going to use this to just juggernaut their way through everyone who disagrees with them? Are they just going to keep going until they've eliminated everything other than the narrative that they want to support? And part of me thinks that they wouldn't do that because, especially with the news, controversy is what keeps them going. They need both sides. But then it's like, okay, maybe it's not a matter of them actually doing it. Maybe it's just that they keep us distracted by bringing it up as a conversation, and then you have people saying yes, you have people saying no, and bread and circuses just keeps going and going and going. I don't know. But I have a serious problem with this because at the very least, it's just dicking around to distract people. At most, it's incredibly dangerous because you think, well, I'm not a white nationalist, I'm not a neo-Nazi, so, fucking go get them, I don't care. But once they're gone, then like I said, once they're out of the picture, extremism shifts. Now there's a new extreme. And once they're gone, it keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until next thing you know, you're an extremist. All of a sudden, you are the extremist. And you're just sitting there thinking, shit, I should have said something earlier. I should have done something earlier. I should have seen this coming. It was only a matter of time once they started shaving off the edges that it would get to me. We never want to think that, but when you go on this campaign and it's based on such vague goals and it's based on claims of things that you can't even prove yet, like I said, they're just assuming that all 3 of these events they talked about are because of white nationalists, despite the fact that, as far as I know, we do not yet know the motive or even the appearance of the Dayton shooter. But they want to jump on that. That's what they do. They're assuming, oh yeah, these are all connected. They're connected because we want them to be. And then we can just move on from there. We can say, now let's use this to attack people who we don't like Trump, because we're still trying to argue that he's somehow connected to white nationalists, despite the fact that he's denounced them. But like I said, at the very least, it's all just bread and circuses. It's a complete waste of time, and we need to stop that because it's just distracting us. They're doing whatever they want behind our backs while we complain about stupid political squabbles, about, stupid disagreements and absolutely nothing. Even if it's based on actual events that are occurring, like mass shootings, we're pissing and moaning about, guns. We're just wasting our time on things that are not going to change, and they're sitting back there going, yep, that'll keep them distracted for a while. That's what's going on at the very least. At most, they're genuine and they want to start taking these people out. And like I said, it's only a matter of time before, once you shave off all those outer layers of extremism, there's a new extreme. And it might be you. It could be me. As ridiculous as that sounds, when it's just a downward spiral. Eventually you're going to get to a point where if you constantly remove the fringe, it shifts inward. And now all of a sudden, rational centrism is right-wing extremism. I don't know where this is going, but just looking at this video, it can't go a good direction. It just can't. As long as they're doing what they're doing and they're saying what they're saying, it just can't go a good direction. It's going to suck, because I don't trust them to do the right thing. I don't trust them at all, because why would they? Why would the news want them to do the right thing? Because if you actually got rid of all the terrible people, if you could actually reduce crime, the news would have nothing to talk about. Why would they want that? Why would they want less things to talk about when news is 24/7? They'll talk about the same thing 5 times throughout the day with the same information, with no updates, because they want to be on air all day. Why would they want to limit the number of topics that they can talk about when they can basically encourage controversy? They can throw out bullshit that gets people stirred up, and they don't ever have to correct themselves. They're never held to account for the things that they claim. They can just say shit, and then other people get frustrated, and then that becomes news, and they get more views. Why would we ever trust the news to be honest? Why would we trust them to promote, friendliness, to promote cooperation? Why would we ever trust them to do that? Because that runs counter to what they are. They're just for-profit news. It's like a reality show trying to be genuine, showing how people really feel, how people really act. Why would they do that? Then nobody would watch the show. That's all it is. News is just another reality show. And it subsists on controversy. It subsists on bullshit. Not some, most, especially television news. How do you think they've survived for this long? Because when they can't just make shit up, when they can't air out people's dirty laundry, when they can't, somehow indirectly profit off of a terrible tragedy with some clever name, terrible tornado tragedy. There's always got to be an alliterative title because it's more catchy. When they can't profit off of that, what do? They fill it in with, here's how you make a good margarita. Just bullshit. Just bullshit, because they want your attention. And they are not above lying. We've seen that. None of the major news networks are above lying to get your attention, to maintain your attention. And I realize I'm just rambling at this point, but it's so frustrating for me. It's so frustrating that this is happening. Because like I said, the first thing that popped in my mind was, you know what? You want to go get white nationalists? Do it. I don't care. I don't care. But then I thought, shit. Who are they calling white nationalists, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, whatever? Who gets to make that label? Who gets to say who is and who is not? And then who gets to decide the narrative? Who gets to say what actually happened? There are people who still think that Charlottesville was about a bunch of white nationalists who showed up and started a fight and then a woman died. There are still people who think that. They don't, because I guess they weren't fucking paying attention. They weren't paying attention to the fact that nothing would have happened if the protesters hadn't shown up. Because, okay, what were they doing before? Marching around with tiki torches and saying some racist shit. Whoop-de-doo. something they're completely allowed to do. Doesn't matter whether or not you disagree with them. They're allowed to do it. And then a bunch of protesters showed up, fights broke out, and a woman died. That's what happened. That's exactly what happened. And something like this, it could be the same thing. Years from now, people are still claiming that it's like, oh, this is some white nationalist nexus, underground, domestic terrorist group. It's a serious problem. It's the most serious problem that we face. The same way that Donald Trump is the greatest threat to our country right now. Not the potential threat of nuclear war. Not a meteor crashing into Earth. Not overpopulation, not deforestation, not ocean acidification, not climate change. No, Donald Trump. Yes, that is the greatest threat that we face. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. It's all bread and circuses. And honestly, normally I just leave them alone. I just go, you know what? You go lie. You go do your thing. Go satisfy your insecurities. Go try to get people's attention so that you can, cling to the money that you get from it, because it fills a hole inside that you think nothing else can. You've given up on life, so you've just become vampires. Except instead of sucking blood, you suck money, and that's it. You know what? Go do your thing, because you will either die regretting your entire life, or maybe at some point you'll realize, wow, I'm a terrible person. I absolutely fucked up. I put my insecurities before other people's lives for years. I contributed to horrific things occurring in my home country, and potentially even outside of it. All because I couldn't realize how infantile I am, how unstable I am. And it's like, like I said, just go do your thing and hopefully you'll figure that out. But with this, I can't just stand by and do nothing. I can't say nothing, because I can just see so many different ways that this could go terribly. So many ways that this could hurt people I know, and it could hurt me, potentially. Not right now, but somewhere down the line, if they keep pushing this and the Overton window gets smaller and smaller and smaller, it's gonna come back. I mean, eventually it's gonna be self-destructive. But how many casualties are we gonna be okay with along the way? Are we gonna stop them when they go after people who aren't white nationalists, who aren't white supremacists, but are just political enemies of theirs? Are we going to stop them when they do that? Or are we just gonna let it happen because we think, well, it's not me though. I can't see this going any good direction. At the very least, it's a waste of time. At most, it's just the start of a horrific campaign. Jeez, I've been talking for freaking 23 minutes. Anyway, I really wanted to get that off my chest. This is not how I wanted to wake up on a Sunday, whatever. It's a terrible thing that these shootings happen. And we really need to address the causes behind them. Because it's not just about ideologies. It takes an unstable person to do something like that. And that's what we need to address. It's not about the guns. I don't care about the guns, but it's not about the guns, okay? A gun in and of itself does not commit violence. If you take away the guns, it'll be knives, it'll be bombs, it'll be fucking, potato peelers. It's the people behind it. You need to address why this is happening now. What is causing people to do this? What is the root of that? Is it, online extremism? Is it bubbles online? I mean, you could argue that with the far right and the far left. There are definitely people who find their own little corners on the internet where they're just surrounded by people who are agreeing with them and they become radicalized. That is definitely a thing. Is that something we need to, I'm sure it's something we need to address. But we need to look at the psychological root of this, because there's not like a physical cause. It's all psychological. And so many people nowadays do not understand psychology at all. They don't understand that pretty much everything bad that happens comes from people's insecurities. And it's so... I think the sickest thing about all of this is that we are watching people die. We're watching people get killed. And all I can think is, might those people have lived? Might those shooters have not done what they did if we had just addressed the real problems beforehand instead of dicking around with gun control, where one side comes up with these ridiculous rules and regulations for we should do this, and the other side goes no, and then nothing gets done. Because that's what happens every single time. It's going to happen after this too, guarantee it. It's going to happen. You're going to have people who are going to talk about gun control, and you're going to have people who say no, and nothing's going to change, and then there's going to be another mass shooting, and more people are going to die because we're not addressing the real problems. That's what's the most fucked up about this. Way more fucked up than internet persecution. It's just the fact that you have... There are people who don't know that they're going to wake up and it's going to be their last day, and they could have survived if we just didn't allow controversy to rule us. Primarily because of the news media. I'm going to blame the news media. Because they subsist on controversy. Why in the world would they want a mass shooting to not happen? Sounds terrible, but why would they want it to not happen? They might want it to be stopped before it occurred, because that's news. But why would they want it to happen well before there's anything to even talk about? Why would they want that? I'm not saying they want people dead. I'm just saying they want news, because that's what they do. That's how they make their money. They want news. And a mass shooting is big news. It's fucked up, but it's true. We really need to change the way that we think about everything. Like, the entire world needs to go through like an introspection phase where we just stop, we look at ourselves, and we self-analyze. We start to understand how psychology works. We start to understand that everything that we do wrong comes from our insecurities. Then maybe fewer people will die. We can prevent things like this from happening. Because nothing else that we do, like cyber terrorism, going and persecuting people who you claim are white nationalists, white supremacists, that's not going to make things better. It's just going to inflame everything. Because I don't trust them to do it appropriately. Yeah, if honest people were doing it, then I would hope that there would be positive results. But I don't believe that honest people would be doing this. So it's just going to inflame everything. That's why no matter what they do, things haven't gotten any better. Maybe a little stagnant, but shit still happens. Mass shootings are still so common now that you wake up and it's like, oh, there's another one. It's not even shocking anymore. So clearly nothing they're doing is working. Because we're not doing the right thing. We're not addressing the psychological roots. Because if we started to address the psychological roots, then everybody involved would start to realize, wow, I'm a terrible person because all I'm doing is promoting controversy so that I can get money. I mean, if people started to have that kind of introspection, the entire fucking government would like halt for a second as everybody started to realize, wow, look at all the horrible shit that I've done just because I want to be popular or I want to have money. Anyway. I could probably keep ranting about this for another hour, but I need to eat. I need to get dressed and I need to eat and I need to move on with my fucking day. And hopefully this doesn't go the direction that I fear it will. Like I said, I can't imagine that it will go a good direction. I feel like it's likely going to be negative no matter where they go, because they're not addressing the real problems. Because they either don't understand the real problems, or they don't want to understand the real problems. Because if you did understand the real problems, then we would start actually building a more peaceful world. You're never going to build a world that is void of violence, not as long as we're mortal beings, but at least it could be a little bit more peaceful. There could be less controversy, there could be less tension. But why do that? It's not good news. Anyway, I'm Drachona, and this is my rant for the day. I don't even know if I'm going to put this up. It's like 30 minutes long, and it's just nothing but me ranting. I don't even know how the audio sounds with my freaking air conditioner on. But at the very least, this will just be for me to look back on. Hopefully, if I'm looking back on this in the future, things are better, and we've actually learned. I really hope. I really hope so. But anyway, I don't know what to say. I hope things get better.